Hello and welcome to the Junglegarden in Denmark. This is just a quick little video to show how the garden is doing after the big freeze in the middle of December. We had 2 weeks in a row where the temperatures never got above zero, and we had several nights with minus 11 degrees centigrade, and that was a bit hard on the garden, which you'll see later on. The yuccas, as you can see, are doing very well. As always, they haven't been protected at all, not even when it was coldest. As you can see, the Treefern has been burnt by the frost, even though we had some fleece to cover the fronds, but it wasn't enough. We also had a flamingo polystyrene barrel where we've cut the bottom off so it's like a cylinder, and that was down around the trunk, but in doing that a lot of the fronds broke, so we won't do that again. It had straw in the middle of the crown and fleece around the top of the trunk and where the crown begins, just to protect the new shoots. And I hope they're still alive. I can't see why they shouldn't be, unless it was just too cold. We'll just have to wait and see till spring. And here is Schefflera taiwaniana, which is doing very well. It had also had a polystyrene barrel around it, and it covered with the fleece bag. Actually, it's right here next to it. That looks like it's done the trick. We have in the past lost a Schefflera taiwaniana, so we just didn't dare not to protect it. Underneath all this is Gunnera manicata. I cut the leaves off and I've put some straw around the base of the plant, and then covered the straw with leaves just to take the rain. And of course we don't know if that has survived until spring. And as you can see, the Trachycarpus they're doing very well. They are quite hardy, as you know. These are Fortunei, and there's a Wagnerianus next to them, and they have been protected around the shoot in the middle with straw, because we have actually lost Trachycarpus in the past, and when it was really cold, we put a fleece bag over them, and that's why you see these rods with cans on top, because that makes it a lot easier to pull the fleece bag over the plant without the rod poking a hole in the fleece bag. And here's one of the boxes that covers some of the more tender plants. This is a Cautleya spicata, I think, and I cut them down and I put straw around the plant, and then I put this box on top, and as you might be able to see, it's open in each end to let the air pass through, in the hope that if the straw gets wet from beneath, if the ground is really wet, then it could be able to dry out again. We have lost plants before because they rotted away. We do have some very wet winters nowadays. And this is one of the new eucalyptus trees, Eucalyptus gregsoniana, and it looks a little sorry for itself, which is a bit strange because it should be hardy down to minus 15 degrees centigrade. But we'll just have to wait and see if it perks up in the spring. The other eucalyptus, this is Eucalyptus archeria, I think, the blue one, and the one in the background, which is, focus please, it is Eucalyptus stellulata, as far as I remember. They're doing quite okay. They don't look like the other one, which is good. It's not all doom and gloom. And here is Fatsia japonica variegata, and it doesn't look too good. But the good thing about Fatsias is they always look like I don't know what after the winter is over, and then they just bounce back. So I'm not that worried. We have to remember the winter is far from over. Normally we get the really cold weather in January and February, so it might still be more frost to come. And here are some more Trachycarpus fortunii, and they are looking good. And the bananas haven't been unwrapped just yet. They're still wrapped up, and they'll be like this until spring. And it'll be interesting to see what has happened this winter, because we've changed the method of protecting them, and we'll just have to see if that was enough for those cold temperatures we had. This is Butia odorata, which is a more tender palm tree. It's still hardy, but it's not as hardy as Trachycarpus. And we have put our usual polystyrene barrel over it, and it had a fleece bag on top, and they're looking good. I mean, even the fronts that are sticking out, they don't look too bad. And here is the rock face, and it's being prepared to house some more arid plants, and I've decided that I'm going to change it a little to get a bit bigger area for arid plants, but more of that later on. And this is Euphorbia stygiana, which looks like it's doing quite okay. It's lost a little bit of its color on the leaves, so hopefully it'll bounce back. It normally does. But here behind it we've got two Cordyline australis, the green type, sitting right next to each other, and this one to the right, well, the top has collapsed. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually hanging down the side, and either it'll shoot again or it's dead. And it's a bit strange, because right next to it is another one exactly the same, and it's hopefully doing fine. It hasn't collapsed yet anyway. This is our Loquat tree, and as always it looks absolutely fine. Hasn't been protected in any way, and apparently it can take it even though it's right in the wind. And this is our Tetrapanax papyrifera steroidal giant, one of them, and it always loses its leaves here in winter, and most of the time we keep the stems, and then or the trunks, and it'll shoot again next year. But I've just had a feel, and they're quite squishy, all of them, so apparently it has been knocked back to the root. Same thing happened last year, and it just reshot from the root, so I'm not that worried just yet. But it's not all doom and gloom. If you look over the garden, I think there's a lot of things still looking nice and green, and yes, a lot of it has been burnt by the frost. We did have minus 11 degrees centigrade, so I think it's quite impressive that so much is still looking good. And when all the ground covers come back in spring, I think we'll be back to where we were last year. And that's the thing, when you have a jungle garden in Denmark, you will have these experiences. It is not natural to have a jungle in Denmark, so there will be losses, and there will also be wins, and that's the fun part of it. The fish have gone into semi-hibernation. They keep close to the bottom of the pond when it's so cold. It's around 5 degrees today, which is not really cold, but... And that was all for this time. Thanks for watching.